Good evening and welcome to the Village Board meeting for the Village of Pleasantville. Today is Monday, September 24. If you're watching live on Monday, September 24, you can call in if you have comments or questions at 769-1677. As always, you can watch our Village Board meetings on Verizon and soon to be Optimum Cable TV. Fair to say, Shane?
Yep.
And within a few days, you can pick up an on-demand webcast of this board meeting and past board meetings at pctv76.org. Our next regular meeting is, back to the calendar. Our next regular meeting is to be determined, but we assuming it's acceptable to the rest of the board, it would be Monday, October 8th. That's Columbus Day, but it is a floating holiday here for the village, and is that acceptable to all?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Monday, October 8th is our next regular meeting. Work session at 7, regular meeting at 8. Sorry to start a little bit late today. We were in a discussion, as some of you who watch the agenda may know, looking at the Memorial Plaza Civic Space that we have been designing that would be at the north end of Memorial Plaza, at the end by the war monuments. Our preliminary cost estimates done by a cost estimating firm have come back with higher numbers all across the board on almost everything we imagine doing. And so we're doing a little bit of analysis of ways we could reduce the price of this in order to achieve most of the goals we had, but clearly going to have to sacrifice some of the details. So that'll be a public process we'll continue with and hope to arrive at a conclusion that turns into an affordable project, but also one that still achieves most of the goals we had. A couple of announcements I wanted to make, and one of them is, as we have seen lately, hurricane season has arrived. Blessedly, we have been spared so far, and hopefully will be for the rest of the season, but it has occasioned some emergency planning meetings here at the village, just sort of going over and freshening up the plans we have for our police department, our DPW department, our building department, police, fire, ambulance, etc., so that we have sort of gone through the reasonable if-then statements about how we would react in certain conditions. I encourage folks in their own homes to make the same kind of analysis, to think about the things they might want to have. As you recall, in past years, when something like Superstorm Sandy is arriving, getting into Home Depot is extremely difficult and supplies are extremely short. So there are a bunch of things that I think it's reasonable for folks to have in their own homes that feel like it would help you weather a storm, potentially weather a period of time without power. All of those things are worth thinking about. Worth suggesting that folks can go to the FEMA website. Steve, would that be FEMA.gov? Because the Federal Emergency Management Group has on their site a bunch of things that are worthwhile for folks who are homeowners to think about. Emergency go kits, things you might want to plan about to make sure that you have the best possible situation in the event that we have a tough situation, addressing issues of pets, medication, making sure that important papers are as secure as they can be, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully none of that happens, but we've all been confronted in the last 10 years with a number of circumstances where advanced planning paid off, and so I encourage folks to get going on that if they possibly can. Did anyone have other announcements?
Yeah, a couple. One is something I think Steve posted, which is that on October 3rd from 1 to 3 p.m., the Pleasantville Police Department is hosting Coffee with a Cop at Starbucks. And the other...
Right, from 1 to 3 p.m. is exactly right.
That's correct. And the day before, on October 2nd at 7 p.m., the village is hosting an informational meeting regarding coyotes, because there's been some concern in the community. A wildlife biologist with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation will be speaking and providing information.
I have one.
Okay.
The Mount Pleasant Public Library has discovered some asbestos, and there's going to be an immediate abatement project done this Wednesday, September 26th. It'll be closing at 5 p.m. and they're expecting to open at the normal time on September 27th, but that is, of course, depending upon the scope of the work.
Okay. All right. Just to recap, the coyote meeting is an important one for folks, especially in neighborhoods that have been affected. We have reports of coyotes in various places. The West Gorin neighborhood most recently, but in various places along Washington Avenue, up Ashland, Tioga area, I think in your
Meadow,
neighborhood,
definitely.
Steve, Green Meadow. More prominently in areas that back up to areas that have wooded zones. The DEC has made clear, Eric's conversation, that the Sawmill River itself is a kind of a north-south byway for them because there's a green space on both sides. So certainly what's happening in Pleasantville is happening in almost every town in Westchester, perhaps every town in Westchester. Coyotes are coexisting with all of us in ways that are nervous-making, but I think in the end, as we will hear at the meeting with the DEC biologist, there are relatively few options that we have other than to learn how to protect ourselves, our pets, our families, our property, and to live in a reasonable way with coyotes who are, for the most part, doing the same thing. So it's a situation that probably means that in the affected neighborhoods, people are going to have to be much more careful about their outdoor pets, especially small outdoor pets, and pay attention to the fact that there are areas where coyotes are now getting relatively comfortable, coming relatively close to inhabited areas. And you want to add anything to that, Eric, prior to our regular meeting?
No, I think you covered it. Also, there is no possibility to catch and release these animals. State regulations mandate that if they're trapped, they need to be exterminated.
And also indicate that trapping and exterminating, though it might seem like a short-term solution, is in most circumstances not a successful answer because the territories then get occupied by new animals
They
who
get
come
repopulated.
to repopulate the area. So
Right.
And that's the Clinton Street Center, correct?
That's at the Clinton Street Center, and I'll also
right,
add.
you want to repeat the date and the time?
Oh,
It's-
yes,
right.
absolutely. Let me just pull it up quickly. So it's on October 2nd at 7 p.m. at the Clinton Street Center. And also just sort of a side note for those who might be interested, at Rockefeller State Park Preserve, where their office is, there's an adjacent building where they often hold art exhibits, and the one that started, I believe, just this past weekend is on predators in the park. And so I'm sure it will include information on coyotes as well as other predators. And they have biologists on staff there, so if anyone is curious.
So what is certainly clear about the situation is the more folks know about the behavior of coyotes, the better off we are, both because it gives you some resources to plan how you want to behave and what guidelines you want to establish for your kids, your pets, etc. Also give you some guidelines about how to behave if you find yourself near a coyote, which for the most part, certain kinds of actions have proven to be successful. And then even more important than that, some guidelines to give you a chance to assess whether a coyote is behaving normally, typical coyote behavior, because if you find a coyote that is behaving abnormally, that's potentially a sign of an animal that's sick or rabid or whatever. And we're also going to suggest that folks who see coyotes let the police department know at its regular number, not as an emergency number, that's 769-1500, so that our police can start to develop a list of where sightings have happened, which will give us a better idea of where they are and also give us a better opportunity to inform neighbors in those zones that they might have particular concerns. So again, folks who would like to attend Tuesday, October 2 at 7 p.m., but it will be taped, not for live distribution because we don't have live feed from the Clinton Street Center, but we will have an opportunity to tape it and then broadcast it later. You can pick it up on demand at pctv76.org. So for those who would like to watch all or part of it on a different schedule, that's an option for you as well. Anything else?
Can I just add that people shouldn't be afraid that and generally coyotes don't go after people, and there was an incident of a rabid coyote in Westchester County, but that's a very rare occasion. Coyotes are rarely known to contract rabies. I just wanted to add that.
All right. Any comment from the public on any subject? You're welcome to speak or not. 769-1677. All right. With that, let's go to the resolutions number 204. Nicole.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the hiring of James Vetrano as a part-time available school crossing guard, job code title 0141, at a rate of $20.62 per hour, effective September 25th, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a letter from the police chief who has interviewed him and recommends him as a fill-in crossing guard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Steve, 205.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village attorney to proceed with the settlement of certiorari petition by Zwilling J.A. Henkels LLC for 3 separate but contiguous lots on the official tax map as sections 106.10, Block 1, Lot 47, Section 106.10, Block 1, Lot 54, and Section 106.10, Block 1, Lot 57 as follows. For the years 2014 through 2018, a total of $1,183.60 for the tax years in the 47 parcel. In the 54 parcel for the years 14 through 18, a total of $106,107.45. And for the 57 parcel, years 2014 through 2018, $7,580.20. Further resolved that the cumulative refund associated with these assessment reductions equals $114,871.25. As agreed, the village will pay this refund in 2 installments. The first installment of $57,435.63 will be due within 60 days of service of an entered consent judgment upon the village, and the second installment of $57,435.62 will be due on or before June 30th, 2019. Interest on the refund is waived, provided the payments are made within these timelines.
Is there a second?
Second.
So this is the result of a long process, as some of you who followed our village board meetings for a long time will know. The previous occupant of the site that's now Henkels was a company called MLA, Medical Laboratory Automation. They existed on that site under the terms of an Industrial Development Authority agreement that dated back into the 90s, and they paid a fixed payment in lieu of taxes. So during all those years, the property was fairly dramatically overassessed. That is the number that was carried on the books, suggested that it was worth far more than it was. At the time that it was sold to Henkels, they obviously made substantial and impressive improvements to the property, but at the same time recognized that the base assessment, which now mattered because it was no longer under an IDA deal, needed to be brought back to reasonable standards. So the result of all that you just heard Steve read is that the base assessments in this agreement are restored to a reasonable number across these years between 2014 and 2018, but also reflect the substantial improvements and investment that Henkel made in it. So happily and hopefully, we now have a reliable assessment base for that property, and all parties will be happy, and Henkel's will continue to be comfortable with the fact that they are fairly assessed. Anything to add to that, Eric?
Nope.
Okay.
You covered it pretty well. And
I've sucked all the air out
I
of the room.
will say that thank you to Henkels for agreeing to split up the payments into
Yeah,
two.
that's-
They didn't have to do that, and they agreed to do that. So.
Right. So, and unrelated to their tax cert case, they have been extraordinarily cooperative neighbors and cooperative part of the tax base. So, thanks to that. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. 206. Joe.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village attorney to proceed with the settlement of certiorari petition by Summa Realty as designated on the official tax map as Section 106.5, Block 2, Lot 66 as follows, for the tax years 2011 through 2014 plus 2018, a total refund of $35,259.86.
Is there a second?
Second.
So again, we have, as we always do in these circumstances, correspondence from our tax attorney at Keenan Bean, who assists us in working through these tax certs, and Keenan Bean recommends this as the best solution for the community.
And
Questions,
it appears that 2015, 16, and 17 were not included because I suppose the petitioner did not file for those years.
Apparently so, yes.
So they don't get a refund for those years, although their new, with this settlement, their new assessment will be set for 2019.
Does anything prevent them from coming back to us
They
for
can't,
those years?
as far as I know, they can't. It's not my field
What's-
of expertise,
right.
but if you,
You settle, you
there's a
settle.
time limit. There's a time limit to file. If you don't meet your time limit, you're done, and it's within
Right.
it's
You
within a
have to
few months of
file
the.
annually.
Okay.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. David, 207.
Resolved that the pre-check register dated September 24th, 2018, covering check numbers 9,959 to 91,085 is hereby approved as listed below. The general fund, $269,161.76. The water fund, $157,195.80. The capital fund, $7,997.40. The refuse fund, $17,185.75. The trust fund, $2,570 for a total of $454,110.71.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or questions about the check register? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Nicole, 208.
Can I just mention that the minutes don't seem to be attached? Is that a problem?
That is a problem.
It's hard to approve.
Maybe I
if
didn't
we
make
can't
them
see them.
public, hang on.
Do you want to push this resolution to the next meeting?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's
Okay.
table resolution 208 or simply pull it,
Okay.
whichever you prefer. So folks have had a chance to review the minutes. You want to table and bring it back at the same number, or pull it completely and renumber?
No, we'll pull it and I'll renumber.
Okay,
You want me
fine.
to renumber the remaining?
That's fine. So
So the next
Nicole,
one's
209, which will be renumbered as 208.
Okay. Approval of appointment, Resolved that the Board of Trustees, based upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Recreation, hereby appoints Sabrina Souther
Oh,
to
I'm sorry, that was.
the job title Office Assistant
Treasurer.
Financial Support. We good? Job code 0726, CSEA, wage schedule B, group 6, step 3, effective October 8, 2018, at a salary of $59,021. Said appointment is subject to a probationary period of not less than 12 weeks to a maximum of 52 weeks.
Is there a second?
Second.
Eric, you want to fill us in on this one?
Sure. So she's actually going to be working for Mary in our finance department.
So we should,
Village treasurer.
right,
Yes,
so
but
the
everything else
message is
is-
right.
Yes.
Job title Office
Mm-hmm.
Assistant Financial Support.
And so, yep,
Right, but it is not on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Recreation,
it's on the recommendation of the village treasurer.
of
It's
the
nice to
village
have
treasurer.
everybody's
So
recommendation.
the seconder, the mover and seconder, happy with that with that modification?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
So Sabrina comes from Whippoorwill Club in Eastchester. She was the accounting administrator. Has a bachelor's degree from the College of New Rochelle. She was interviewed twice by our finance department. They all really liked her, and we're really excited to have her aboard. So she will be taking over Alicia's position, and Alicia will be moving down to Department of Public Works, where she'll become the office assistant there.
Okay, so this is a switch into a vacant position from Alicia and hiring in an existing budgeted position.
Correct.
Does anything happen with Alicia's job title or position or salary? Is that something we're going to have to address later? Or it just remains the same, she's just taking over
Just-
different duties?
Correct. It's a transfer, so.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. 210, Steve.
which is now 209.
209.
Right.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village treasurer to close capital account H.7180.201/18770. It's riveting. Pool seating area improvement due to project completion and current balance of $0.
Is there a second?
Second.
Debate this?
Yeah, I'd like
I
to
think we
talk
should-
at length
I think we
about
should-
this
I think we
resolution.
should spend a
Second.
long time on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Joe, 211, which is now 210.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the resignation of Police Officer Philip Rotundo, effective September 14, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
Officer Rotundo elected to move to a different department. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. 212, now 211. David.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby establishes a pedestrian safety committee and appoints Carrie Roberts as committee chairperson for the current term through March 2019.
And I want to enter into the record also the other committee members, Mary Breen, Tim Woods, Samantha Hoover, Adrian Knott, and Jim McDonald.
Okay, so we'll add that to the resolution, so as to appoint Carrie as the chair and then those folks as members. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I know we didn't have, I know we didn't have a comment period on that, but I just want to
Yeah,
thank
so-
you all for your volunteerism. And it seems it's a new committee, right? So it's a new venture, and thank you for doing that because it's important and, you know,
And maybe Nicole,
it's great.
you can describe the scope, and Carrie, if you're
Yes,
so
absolutely.
inclined.
Carrie can say a
This
few
is going to be your
words.
moment of the sun.
Welcome to
Oh,
public
yes,
life.
oh, yes.
Do you have an agent? Yeah.
I recall you had a safety issue, and we
well-
took care of it. So
Yeah.
you came forward, that was good.
So is it fair to say that your two main areas of focus will be improving pedestrian safety in the village and encouraging walking in the village? Do you want to add anything, Carrie? No? Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to be their point person, and I'm very excited that they have stepped up and are organizing this committee.
The outreach for encouraging people to walk is so important. It's just so hard. Everybody says we have a walking village, and then you see people driving their kids to school or driving just down the street to go to the store or whatever it is. I do it too. So believe me, I'm not saying look at me, I'm great, but it's so important to get people out there and walking.
Right.
Agreed.
And on the other end, there's areas of the village like Washington Avenue where there's a huge amount of walking and it's incredibly unsafe, and anything to help that you can suggest and work through with us to help improve that would be welcome.
So we will have on the village website, we will have a link to the pedestrian committee so that people who would like to direct questions to them may do so.
So clearly, I endorse everything that's been said, and thank you, Carrie, for taking on this responsibility. As is so clear in so many places, we have a tight, walkable village, and the feeling of walkability is frequently diminished by drivers' behavior. We've got some particularly tough spots. I've heard recently from a few people, and you know this better than I, circumstances like the crosswalk on Bedford Road that crosses between the area near Foley's on the one side and the Art of Wine on the other, happens to fall at a place where there are quite a few people who want to cross, but the confluence of a bunch of people sort of jockeying their way through the triangle intersection, turning left or not into the area by Mediterraneo, and it feels like a game of chicken for pedestrians, even though the state law is clear that you're supposed to stop for pedestrians in crosswalks. So that's just one of a number of circumstances where I regularly see a disheartening lack of respect for pedestrians, and to the extent that we can make physical changes or regulatory changes or just make the point more clearly, all of that is good. I occasionally am drawn to Massachusetts in my day job and am struck by the fact that the culture of stopping in crosswalks in Massachusetts is strikingly
Or
different.
California, yeah.
It's almost like you push your foot out and suddenly cars are screeching to a stop, and you're thinking, whoa, in New York they'd be speeding up to see if they could get past me before I got anywhere near the point where they would kill me. So
Honk the horn instead.
So-
Yeah, I've been,
Yeah.
I've been
So-
honked at on Memorial Plaza.
How dare you cross the road?
Yeah.
to the post
What's wrong with you?
So to that end, Carrie and I already met with Eric Morrissey and with Eric Grutzner, our chief of police, to discuss how we can encourage people to respect pedestrian right-of-way at crosswalks. So we're already on it. And also, one other thing I wanted to mention is that the pedestrian committee will be putting out a survey to the community, and it will be distributed through social media, but also on actual paper at the farmers market and the Clinton Street Center and other places to sort of take the temperature of the community and get a sense of what everyone's concerns and interests and how they feel about the walkability of the village.
All right, thank you all, much appreciated. Nicole, 213, now 212.
Okay. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator to sign the proposal with Eric Brotherton Architect PLLC for architectural services associated with village property located at 2 Lake Street.
Is there a second?
Second.
So the village property at 2 Lake Street is what has historically been known as the pump house. It's that low brick building on the right-hand side as you head up lake toward the pool. It was at one point in its life the center of the village water system, with big diesel pumps that were pumping water and maintaining pressure in the system. 20 some odd years ago, when the village bought into a share of the Newcastle water treatment plant, that the flow of water changed, and we no longer needed that. The pumps have been long since removed, and our water department still maintains their garage and base of operations up there, but the front room is available and is to be modestly renovated for the purposes of PCTV. In the past, PCTV has paid a modest rent to live on 25 Wheeler Avenue in the back of behind Miyabi, but for a variety of reasons, that was not tenable going forward and also likely to cost more, and so we're now able to put PCTV on village property and spend a little bit of money to renovate to make it suitable for them, but also be investing in our own building and some of somebody else's. So Eric Brotherton has recently moved to the village and are pleased to use a new Pleasantville resource for this project. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Joe, 214, now 213.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village court clerk's request to apply for a 2018-2019 New York State Justice Court Assistance Program grant for office security enhancements. And further resolved that the board hereby authorizes the village mayor to sign the said grant application.
Is there a second?
Second.
So Eric, these are improvements in the door and window.
Correct, to make them bulletproof.
Okay.
Literally.
I don't think there is such a
Not
thing as
quite
figurative
bulletproof.
movement.
Well, price.
Right.
Or
a certain caliber gun.
At any rate, if we are able to get the JCAP grant, that'd be great. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. David, 215, which is now 214.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the resignation of Recreation Assistant Paul Harkins, effective September 20th, 2018. If we don't accept somebody's resignation, do they not get to resign?
So we missed one.
We missed one, yeah.
215.
Oh, I apologize.
Yes, which is now 214.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village mayor to sign the application for corrected tax roll RP-554 with the town of Mount Pleasant for property parcel ID 106.6-5-22, located at 426 Bedford Road, supporting documents attached.
Is there a second?
Second.
So Eric, you want to?
So this is a interesting one. The village acquired a piece of this parcel to make enhancements to safety for sightline purposes for cars driving.
This is the corner of Tompkins and Bedford,
Correct.
across the street from Holy Innocents.
And whenever that was filed with the town, I think it was over a year ago, it was misfiled, and the entire property was given to the village.
Cool.
So Noreen,
Which we did not intend.
Which we did not intend to do. We got a town school tax bill in the mail and said, well, this is odd. And Noreen did some digging around, and Noreen could probably talk in more detail. She's been spending a lot of time correcting this, but as of right now, we do own an entire home and parcel.
Of great surprise to the people who actually own it.
Correct, yes.
And who who were extraordinarily cooperative
Right.
with us
Oh, with-
about
yes.
taking the corner to try to create
Right.
a better traffic turn.
So is this the first step in a long line of
Safety
unwinding
issue.
that?
It's part of it. We've already engaged Jackie Martineau again, who originally represented us, and then also had the parcel redefined by TC Merits, so that we can
Surveyor.
then file it with the exact meets and bounds for this unique piece of the parcel. It was never fully identified. It was full deed to include property when
So the deed
filed.
was wrong.
Yes. It wasn't limited in scope, it was broad.
Errors were made, yeah, all right.
All right,
This
so
fixes it.
we're on the case to get it fixed. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. 216, Nicole, now 215.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the resignation of Recreation Assistant Paul Harkins effective September 20, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
We appreciate his service. Wish him well in the future. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Is there any new business? New subjects, comment from the public? Anyone with something on their chest they wish to get off their chest? No respondents. Okay, so just to remind everybody, the Coyote discussion meeting is at the Clinton Street Center next week, Tuesday, October 2 at 7 p.m. For those who wish to attend, appear at the Clinton Street Center on Clinton Street under the Senior Center. And for those who would like to follow up on that within a few days, you can pick it up on pctv76.org to hear the discussion and to know more about the lay of the land for coyotes here in the village of Pleasantville. And then the Coffee with a Cop program, just to remind folks, Pleasantville police officers will be at Starbucks on Wednesday, October 3 from 1 to 3 p.m. It's part of actually a national program. Please join the Village of Pleasantville Police Department for Coffee with a Cop at Starbucks. Good opportunity to just engage our officers in an informal setting with no particular agenda to create a stronger link between our department and the folks we serve. With that, is there a motion to go into executive session on matters of real estate negotiation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. See you in 2 weeks.